This is a huge 3v3 battle sent to me by King of the Dead. We have a Romano-Greek alliance against a Barbarian alliance. For Rome, this is going to be so hard to go over. For Rome, Evocati mainline together with wedge equites on the flanks. You don't see that too much. Slingers, Syrians in the center, and some gladiator spears. For the Seleucids, we have 3 Hellenic cataphracts, 2 camel spears, a center of thorax swords, Syrian heavy archer mainline, the skirmishers that is. For Egypt, we have 2 Hippeus, 2 citizens, for Athens I mean. Then we have a mainline of thorax hoplites, thorax swords, and Cretan archers, standard archers. So this is quite interesting. You can see that in some battles, some teams will deploy sort of like deploy their army separately. So these are all self-contained armies. They're not as one cohesive force. Whereas the Barbarian alliance is very much deployed as a cohesive army. So we have on the front lines we have the Levy freemen. So many Levy freemen. We have Germanic slingers, we have Bloodstone, Germanic scout riders. In the center we have the Celtic slingers, painted ones. Behind those we have chosen swords, spear walls, spear women, wodenas, heroic nobles, veteran riders, sword masters. All of the vulnerable units being placed in the back, far away from the Syrian archers and the Cretan archers, and this could prove hard to deal with for the Romano-Greek alliance here. The Barbarian army doesn't take up a whole lot of frontage, but it's a deep army. It's an army that's going to be extremely hard to use shock cavalry against. Now, one of the issues with this type of setup is that it doesn't take many units of thorax swords or thorax hoplites to keep pushing their barbarians back. And but still, I mean, there are just multiple lines, 1, 2, 3 lines of Levy freemen, multiple lines of spears. Very hard to make something happen against an army like this. And of course the Germanic slingers can trade reasonably well against Syrian archers. They can certainly make them use a lot of ammunition. Now, because of the way that this Barbarian army is deployed, it can flank from behind the screen of the light inexpensive units, or it can make the light inexpensive units engage stuff and then safely send in heroic nobles, Oathsworn and swordmasters. So if I was looking at this Barbarian army here, I think I would be a bit intimidated, because I mean, units like these Hellenic cataphracts, they're not going to survive for long when unit after unit of Levy freemen start throwing their precursors into the fray. So let's just fast forward here a bit. Whoops, some lag. 3 versus 3, and you even get lags in the replay, so I'll just put it back to normal speed. So much stuff moving at the same time. Going off on the flanks here with the Egyptian or the Athenian citizens and Hippeus. Germanic scout riders are going to love that. Moving through the gap, that might be a good idea, because then when these Hippeus and citizens try to go back to the safety of their own lines, they're going to come under fire, and indeed the Hippeus come under fire here very early. That's hit point damage, very important. But the Germanic scouts are going to start being screened away by these archers. Still, this is very risky by Athens, sending the cavalry out unsupported like this. The citizens also taking a bit of fire now. This is just such a delicious meatball of units for these Germanic scout riders. If you have skirmish cav, this is exactly what you want to see. Slow enemy cavalry units, totally unsupported. They're actually not firing now, the Germanic Scout Riders, and what works to the advantage of certainly Suebi is that they have a resistance to the cold effect on this map. So maybe it would be a good idea at this point to split up the Germanic Scouts and try to get some shots off on the Epeius. They don't have shields and they are a much higher value target than the Citizen Cavalry. Although killing a Citizen Cavalry is also very nice. But certainly nicer to get at the Epeius. The generals, the civilized generals, lagging a bit behind here. And no casualties yet for the citizens. Maybe try to screen with some skirmishers or spears here. Yep, the spear wall is moving up. So now the citizens are taking a few casualties. And you can see on the tactical map how the Romano Celtic army is trying to surround the much deeper, denser formation of barbarians. Germanic Scouts taking fire from somewhere, but they're doing a good job here. Yeah, dropping the Epeius relatively quickly, and Heavy Horse chasing away the Epeius as well. There was a sneaky unit of veteran riders here, almost managing to trap the citizens with their frenzy charge, but now they actually managed to do it with the help of the Heavy Horse, inflicting some casualties on the Citizen Cavalry now, screening away the rest of the support. So the citizens do manage to move away from the veteran riders. They are exhausted, they are heavy. Same with the Heavy Horse, they are heavy. So the citizens made it out of there due to being medium. A unit of thorax swords being used to push away the levy free now. They're not going to like fighting chosen swords. And the auxiliary Syrian archers taking fire from Germanic slingers. The way these Germanic slingers are posted though, yeah, the levy freemen do pull away here, and that's a good idea. You definitely want to take the fire on the Germanic slingers and not just on, or not on multiple units. So the barbarians being very defensive here. Bloodsorn charging out into the Evocati, doing a lot of damage to the Evocati here. They are going to lose, but that was a decent enough charge. Here come the Bloodsorn again against the Evocati, and sending out the cheap units like this unsupported, you're going to be losing your Bloodsorn, but you're also going to be doing significant damage to the Evocati cohorts. So about 40 Evocati dropping here when the Bloodsorn go down, but some of that is due to supporting fire. Here come the wide Chosen Swords. Chosen Swords against the dense formation Thorax Swords are going to do very well on the charge against them. Here come the Painted Ones even, just to kill them off quicker. Painted Ones coming in as second line infantry here, so Bloodsorn Painted Ones smashing, absolutely smashing the Evocati cohorts now. And look at the Evocati cohorts dropping, multiple lines of infantry just doing so well against a single infantry unit. 2 high charge infantry units in a row can really put the hurt on a mid-tier unit. So the Painted One just ran through the Evocati cohorts, and they're going to continue into the flanks here. They are probably going to take a lot of fire from the Syrians. So getting them in here is a good idea, because then the Syrians are going to cause damage to the Evocatis as well. And the Chosen Swords together with the Painted Ones. Over here we have Levy Freeman just holding off the Equites in Flying Wedge of all things. Battle Rhythm being popped on the Chosen Swords to get them some more kills in that engagement. Spearwomen. Interesting. Spearwomen fighting Epeius Lancers here, activating their cavalry counter tactics to kill a few units. But they are in deep, deep shit. Getting hammered from multiple angles. And now spear wall unit just charging in and tying down so many enemy units here. If it goes into shield screen, it might actually hold for a while here. Because these thorax hoplites, they are in phalanx. A bit strange to put them in phalanx at that point. Citizen cavalry taking a few volleys from the Germanic scouts. Now the veteran riders charge in, getting a good charge on both the Epeius and the citizen cavalry. In the center, the Roman cavalry is trying to get into the chosen swords and do some damage there, but the Oathsworn haven't even engaged yet. So now the Oathsworn are going to engage, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the Evocati a lot. The Oathsworn have engaged in the center here as well. So Rome is spent at this point. Rome has a few... Let's see, a few Hastati there, and the auxiliary Syrians are still alive. But the Roman mainline infantry is basically gone. So the spear wall wasn't supported at all. They charged in, they got 0 kills. A bit of an opportunity missed there for the barbarians. On the flanks here, we have the thorax swords fighting up against heavy horse, together with Hellenic cataphracts. The Hellenic cataphracts have taken a beating. They are exhausted. The Syrians firing into spear wall. Don't quite know why they would fire on the spear wall. They have a lot of armor and a good missile block. Now firing on the Levy Freeman. So the Arverni units here on the flanks against the Seleucids, they are struggling. The barbarians are doing well in the center, breaking the Roman units relatively easily. They need to be a bit careful with their generals. They haven't taken a lot of damage yet, but Syrians using precision and heavy shot could do a lot of damage to this Oathsworn here. Gladiator spears charging into the Bloodsworn, and Gladiator spears, very high melee attack. Nice charge, going to do a lot of damage to the Bloodsworn. Germanic Scout Riders stopping the charge of the Epeius here. Nicely done. So that the heroic nobles didn't get charged. They were in the forest anyway, but it would have been bad for the heroics to be hit by Epeius. The Celtic Slingers haven't gotten that many kills, but they are dealing extended damage here. And now the heroics are getting charges on the thorax hoplites. So not good for the thorax hoplites. And on the flanks, the Seleucids are starting to break through, starting to chase away the Briton skirmishers. The Suebi general isn't actually Ariovistus, so that's interesting. Rome has sort of broken through, but there isn't any... there aren't any good Roman infantry units left, really. So the barbarians just pulling away, consolidating their position. The thorax hoplites getting beat on by the heroic nobles, but the heroic nobles are about to get rear charged here by the thorax hoplites, and the thorax hoplites here are not in phalanx. That is pretty bad. They are in a very dense formation here, so they'll not be able to wrap around very effectively. Veteran riders coming into the back of the thorax hoplites, and it almost looked like the thorax hoplites here did, yeah, it looks like they didn't get a proper charge. I don't quite know why. They are fighting, but they didn't get a good charge. And the archers are firing into the blob. But that was now the Athenian general has died actually. So not good for Athens. Athens doesn't have a lot left on the flanks here. The Seleucids have the most remaining, doing some damage here with the Hellenic cataphracts against heavy horse. The thorax have broken through on the flanks. Now they're about to get hit by swordmasters though. Swordmasters and Oathsworn. Not a good day to be a Seleucid infantryman here. But you can see that the heroic nobles are dropping when they get charged by Epeius and rear charged by the thorax hoplites. The thorax hoplites are, however, not using their phalanx, and that would kill the heroic nobles a lot quicker. Germanic scout riders being annoying, going for mercenary Cretans in the back here. Now, if the mercenary Cretans stop running, they might actually be able to... Yeah, they would kill the Germanic scout riders in melee if they stopped running. But if they just get continually attacked in the rear, they are going to die. Let's see, Hellenic cataphracts Not a huge number of kills. It's hard to make Hellenic cataphracts cost effective. They're just so expensive, so slow. They are mopping up some skirmishers very nicely though. The Roman general has not been supporting his troops whatsoever. The swordmasters attacked in the rear by a Hellenic cataphract using trample, so they're losing a few men here, but this engagement should be fine for the barbarians. The fight is still going on here with the heroic nobles and the thorax hoplites. The heroic nobles, well, this is another unit of heroic nobles, I think, charging in, getting a lot of kills here against the thorax hoplites. A rally being popped. Basically only the Seleucid player and the Roman player has anything left at this point. Here's the heroic noble that was fighting the thorax hoplites, and it's going to defeat the other thorax hoplites as well. The thorax hoplites are a very nice unit, but they absolutely need their phalanx to increase their melee attack defense and the damage they do against infantry. 30 weapon damage, although nice for a spear unit, just isn't enough. When they get 35, things get a lot more interesting. Amazingly, the Oathsworn losing slightly here against thorax. They are taking fire from the Syrians, so I guess that's part of the reason why. And the Suebi general is on even footing with his attackers here. The Hellenic cataphracts losing decisively. They haven't been cycling too much here. They might not even have been able to cycle too well because they would take a lot of damage pulling out. Syrian heavy archers firing into the blob, doing damage to the Hellenic cataphracts as well. Wodenas charging in, and now the Hellenic cataphracts trying to disengage, but it's not going to be easy for them disengaging through this. Look at all of those Hellenic cataphracts drop. They ended up getting some nice kills in the end, actually. Getting a trample charge here in on the swordmasters, a last desperate charge. But they are going to drop really quickly. Might get 300 kills though. That's always nice. Now the Syrians actually charge into the Wodenas. Athens is spent. These Balearics defeating Wodenas spears in melee. That's nice. So sometimes when you're fighting depleted units or light cav units, it's just a better idea to stop and fight the unit than it is to try to run away from it. Because if you try to run away, you're going to get attacked in the rear continually, and that's going to deplete the unit very quickly. Whereas if you stand and fight, a 90-man Balearic Slinger unit can do some damage to a depleted melee unit. That is if it can't run away. If it can run away, then that's usually the better option. Flying Wedge Equites chasing after the Celtic Slingers here. If there are precursors, they're going to be so dead. There were precursors, but not that many. Getting a decent charge here, but just routing as they charge. So one of the problems with the Equites, the morale. So victory there for the Barbarian Alliance. Not a huge surprise, but what was surprising was the amount of kills the Seleucid army got. Basically every unit, except for the Camel Spears, does a good job here. The Camel Spears kind of useless. Could have brought something else, but the Seleucid army performed the best out of all the armies, and that's quite interesting. Too good to be true here for the Romans. The skirmishers did a good job, but the Evocati, how the Evocati were used here, they are a great example of why 2 lines of Roman infantry is very, very important, because they got hit by shock infantry in rapid succession and got taken off the field. If there were Hastati there, things would have looked a lot different. So for Suebi, swordmasters doing a decent job. Wodenas doing a decent job. For Arverni, the mid-tier swords do a decent enough job, the Oath Sword do a decent job. Nothing really stands out as having done a great job on the Arverni side, other than the Oath Sword. And then for the Iceni, the elite swords do reasonably well. The cavalry just isn't that good. Nice job by the Britain Slingers here. And the Athenians, not using phalanx at the proper times was a big reason why the thorax hoplites did as poorly as they did, I think. But this was a quite interesting battle. The differences between deployment, deploying as separate armies rather than deploying as a single, more cohesive force, deploying in depth rather than trying to flank around and such. So very different approaches stylistically being used here. But I think if the Roman main assault in the center had been more patient, using the Balearics and the Syrians for longer and having multiple lines of because when you play 2v2s or 3v3s, it's entirely fine. Let's say that, okay, the Roman player here, let's have the Roman player focus more on infantry, and let's have the cavalry support be more made up by the Seleucids with their Median cav and their cataphracts, for example. Let Athens bring some thorax hoplites to work as second line infantry and stuff like that. So I think even some, but of course their barbarians have a massive advantage by having a lot of very cheap units with precursors and having the elite swords that can really tip the fight in favor of the barbarians. So thanks, King of the Dead, for that battle. Strength and honor.